So I am super excited to make this video today because I've been wanting to make this video talking about what my favorite Pokemon game is for the longest time, because I am very passionate about Pokemon. I've been playing the Pokemon games ever since I was younger, and I just felt like it was only right if I eventually made a video down the line discussing with you guys what my favorite Pokemon game is of all time, because obviously there's different Pokemon games out there like Pokemon Soul Silver, Heart Gold, Ruby, Sapphire, Emeralds, Pokemon Fire Red, Pokemon Leaf Green, Red, Blue, Yellow, Silver, Gold, Crystal, all of those old school Pokemon games, and then of course the newer Pokemon games where you had Pokemon Sword and Shield, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Pokemon, Sun and Moon, like all of those games that came out in like the 3D era of Pokemon. So there's just all these different kinds of options that you can choose from. So you could be like, okay, that's my favorite Pokemon game. But what my favorite Pokemon game of all time is Pokemon Platinum. Like, I just love that game so much. You guys already know that I happen to be a really big fan of the Sinnoh region, and I just love Pokemon Platinum. Like, I just have so many memories playing that game. I still remember the first day I got that game, and I went with my mom to Walmart when I pre-ordered that game, and I picked it up there at Walmart, and I had the little Giratina figurine, which I probably still have. I just have to search for it somewhere, because I do know it's somewhere in my room. But I still remember getting that game for the first time, coming home, putting it into my DS, naming my character, and then choosing my Piplup to begin my journey in the Sinnoh region once again, because obviously I played Pokemon Diamond before. But it was just a very fun experience, and I'm just super excited to give you guys like all my thoughts on this game, like when it comes to the storyline, when it comes to the graphics, the music, different features in the game, the variety of Pokemon you can choose from, and just a lot of nostalgic moments that I want to share with you guys. So this is going to be like a super fun video, so I really do hope you guys enjoy this. And if you guys want to give your thoughts to me as well on what your favorite Pokemon game is, be sure to let me know, as always, in the comment section down below. What we're going to be talking about first, like I mentioned, is like the whole storyline when it comes to the Pokemon Platinum games or Pokemon Diamond and Pearl games, because they're pretty much set in the same region. And you come across the same people. I mean, you come across Barry in here, you come across Dawn, you come across like Team Galactic. So it's pretty much like the same storyline that you're seeing. So I don't really want to get too into that. I mainly just want to talk about like my favorite parts of the game when it comes to like characters that I really enjoy. So diving into that, I gotta say that I really love Cynthia. Like, I cannot talk about my love for Pokemon Platinum without mentioning Cynthia. Like, yes, she is in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, but just talking about Pokemon Platinum and just giving my thoughts on her in that game, again, I just love how fun she is when you beat her towards the end of the game, when you're fighting her in the Elite Four, because she is the Elite Four champion in this game. And she's honestly like the best champion that I've ever faced in any Pokemon game I've ever played. Like, I always remember when I restarted a game in Pokemon Platinum, because I played through that game numerous times, because as much as I love Piplup, I also wanted to try out like Turtwig. I also wanted to try out Chimchar to see how they were in the game. And I remember reaching the very end of the game where I was fighting the Elite Four champion. I remember Cynthia always giving me a hard time. And the fun thing about Cynthia is that she was actually challenging, because with these older Pokemon games, they were very challenging. Like, you actually had to grind in order to get your Pokemon at a certain level so they can learn certain moves, so you can increase their stats. So you could pretty much, structure things the way you want. So once you head inside of a gym, you're actually prepared to fight that gym leader so you can earn the badge. Or if you're like traveling through a route and there's like a lot of tough trainers, you actually have to grind in order to get your Pokemon at a good enough level so you're actually able to progress even further in the game. Because nowadays you have like the EXP share, so it pretty much just levels up your Pokemon like automatically, where it's like, okay, every battle you're in, they're all leveling up at once. Back then, you had to switch in and out with different kinds of Pokemon in your party. I mean, yes, the EXP share was a thing back then, but it didn't really have the same effect as it does now, where it affected all Pokemon at once in the party. Like, you were only able to equip it to certain Pokemon. But even with that in mind, you just really had to grind. So when you're going up against Cynthia, you had to make sure you're grinding your ass off, because when you beat Cynthia, like when you were fighting her in the Elite Four, and you took out all the other 4 Elite Four members, when you fought Cynthia, it actually felt earned once you eventually fought her, because she was actually a very difficult Elite Four champion to actually beat. Like, it probably took maybe 2 to 3 times back then when I was a kid, when I was first playing Pokemon Platinum, to actually beat Cynthia and then officially become the Elite Four champion in the Sinnoh region. So she's definitely like one of my favorite characters in here. And I also always look forward to encountering Dawn and having a couple battles with her and seeing how our friendship evolves in that game. And then of course, like all of the numerous battles that I had with Barry when we had a little rival battles, like I always had fun with that. And of course, you know, once we were reaching like Team Galactic and we were fighting like all the top tier guys and gals in the game, when we reached a certain point, it was very fun, you know, fighting each and every single one of them. Like when you go to the area where you fight Dialga for the first time, or when you fight Palkia for the first time, like it was always so much fun just fighting like all these different kinds of like Team Galactic members. It was just a lot of fun. And there was just a lot of lore like in the Sinnoh region, like when it came to Dialga, when it came to Palkia, when it came to Giratina, and especially when it came to Arceus and Shaman and all these other Pokemon that were featured in the game, and just the whole lore of the Sinnoh region as a whole. I mean, that's why we also had Pokemon Legends Arceus to just give us more lore on the Sinnoh region. Like it was just very nice to get all of that lore in Pokemon Platinum and just learn so much about the world instead of just going through the game, getting all 8 badges and being the Elite Four and completing the Pokedex. Like there was just a lot of things that you can sink your teeth into so you can learn about the whole world of the Sinnoh region, and that was very fun back then. And talking about the graphics and music, one of the things that I also want to say about that is like when it came to like the 2D era of the Pokemon games, a lot of the graphics are very unique because back then they were using sprites. They weren't using like all these 3D models that you see nowadays. Like, do I still play the Pokemon games nowadays? Of course I do, because I'm a huge fan of Pokemon. At the end of the day, you know, I can't admit that when it came to like the sprites in the Pokemon game, they were actually unique. They were actually very creative when it came to the different sprites that you saw in a lot of these Pokemon games. Because when you entered the world of Sinnoh, you know, it looked a lot different when you were playing like Pokemon Diamond. Like the graphics look a little bit different when it came to the different kinds of sprites that they made. And then if you compare them to like the 3D Pokemon games, like a lot of them, especially when it comes to the models of the Pokemon now, it's just the exact same model just being reused in every single Pokemon game. Do I still play them? Of course, because I want to keep up with the Pokemon games and I still have fun playing these newer Pokemon games. It's just back then it was a different era back then, and it just looked really cool compared to like what we got now. Like it seemed like, at least to me, they put a lot more love into like these older games compared to like what they do now. Like yes, they still put a lot of effort in these newer games when it comes to like whatever they want to introduce in that new era of Pokemon, but compared to the 2D games, the ones that I grew up playing, I just had a lot of fun with them. And of course, you know, you had a lot of iconic soundtracks in here, like when you fought Giratina, when you fought Cynthia, when you had like those certain route theme music when it came to like certain routes you were visiting, or just like the battle themes that you got in Pokemon. They were just all so cool to listen to because it really made you feel like you were there in the moment. Like, let's say that you were just placed into the Pokemon world and you were the trainer that you created in that game, and you're listening to all of this music around you as the battle's going on. Like, it really makes you feel like you're there in that very moment, experiencing everything around you. Like, it really makes you feel like you're just sucked in there and you're experiencing everything in that game just because the music was just so good. And I just really loved that about Pokemon Platinum, because they had a lot of good soundtracks in that game and the graphics just look so cool. And since we're on the topic of like how the game looks, let's talk about like the gameplay when it came to Pokemon Platinum. Like, one place I want to talk about for sure is the Distortion World in Pokemon, because when I entered that part of the game for the very first time, I was like, holy shit, this is so cool. Like, I'm actually in Giratina's world trying to search for Giratina, and I'm like walking upside down. I'm like walking all the way over here, like to the side, like I'm maneuvering myself in each different area in this map. And it's just so cool how they designed each and every single one of these levels when it came to the Distortion World. Because when we were traveling through that level, I was like, this is just really cool. Like, it's just really interesting to see like the sort of mindset that they had back then when they were designing these kind of Pokemon levels. Like, you don't really see stuff like that as much anymore when it comes to like these newer Pokemon games, because just looking at what they provided to us like all the way back then, like obviously I get, you know, as time goes on, things evolve, so obviously Pokemon games are going to look a lot different compared to the other ones. But the Distortion World is like a perfect example of like how cool a level looked when it came to like a DS Pokemon game, when it came to like all the different kinds of sprites that they used to design that level. I absolutely loved it. And of course, I also loved going up against the Battle Frontier towards the end of the game. That was also very fun to just really test my strength, to see how high I can get in the ranks to fight all these different kinds of trainers. That was always a lot of fun. And there's just a whole variety of Pokemon for me to choose from as well, because that's one of the things I really love about the Sinnoh region, is that I always had so much fun designing my team in that generation. Like, I remember I was always a Piplup guy because penguins are my favorite animals. Piplup is my favorite starter of all time, mainly just because I love penguins so much. And I remember choosing Piplup, eventually getting Empoleon down the line. I got Staraptor because I found Starly in the very first route when I'm going to begin my adventure, which I honestly like Starly so much. It's probably my favorite regional bird. Like, of course, I still care about Pidgey because that's the OG, and I did have a lot of fun with Tailo as well. But I have to say that once you get that Staraptor in your team, like, man, it just feels so good, because when I saw that Pokemon for the first time, I was like, okay, I need to have this Pokemon onto my team. And I think I remember like how my OG team was when it came to Pokemon Platinum. I believe it was like Empoleon, Staraptor. I believe I also had a Luxray, and then I had a Roserade as well. I can't really remember the last two Pokemon. One of them might have been a Snorlax, but I'm not entirely sure. But I always make sure I at least have like a water, a fire, and grass type onto my team. But I can't remember on the top of my head what that fire type was in this generation. I really don't know. I don't think it was a Rapidash, but I honestly can't remember what the fire type was in that generation. But there was just a whole variety of Pokemon to choose from. And Sinnoh honestly has like a lot of hitters in this generation. There's just a lot of cool Pokemon that you could choose from. And I had a lot of fun using all these different kinds of Pokemon within the game. So that was really fun to design your team, because I always made sure that I tried out all the starters. Well, I didn't do that for every generation, but I do know for Gen 4, I tried Piplup, I tried Turtwig, and I tried Chimchar. So it was always fun to decide, like, okay, what Pokemon is going to be on my team this time, because there's just a large variety. So I could take my time and figure out exactly, like, okay, this is the kind of team I want to use for this run with Turtwig, or this run with Piplup, or this run with Chimchar. So it was a lot of fun thinking about what Pokemon I wanted to have onto my team as I was progressing through the game. And honestly, there's just a lot of nostalgia that comes with me in Pokemon Platinum. Like, just all the time that I put into Pokemon Platinum. Like, I didn't just like beat Pokemon Platinum like when it comes to like getting 8 badges and beating Elite Four and calling it quits after that. Like, I made sure that I put a lot of time onto the game, and I even like started making like different teams after I was done beating the game, so I can try out different Pokemon. And also, like, I still remember for the very first time when I played Pokemon Platinum, and I always remembered when I was in school, I used to hide my DS underneath my pillow. I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate to this. It's like your parents are like, oh, you gotta go to sleep, you know, you got school tomorrow, which I did. But I always remember playing Pokemon Platinum throughout the night, and then when my mom was about to walk in, I was like, okay, I gotta hide my DS underneath my pillow, gotta pretend I'm sleeping. And I remember as soon as she left, I just took the DS out. I was continuing to play Pokemon Platinum, or if I was like trying to catch a certain Pokemon, or I was finding a certain gym leader, or whatever I was doing in that game. I always remember doing that all the time, and I just remember having my DS everywhere with me. I even remember one time, like, when I was trying to find like a Wi-Fi like hotspot in my grandpa's house, because there was only certain parts of his house where the Wi-Fi worked. So I always remembered I had to like position my DS at like a certain area in the house in order to get that connection. Because when I had to get Pokemon like Golem or Machamp, or I had to get like Electivire or Magmortar, you know, you had to use trading in order to evolve those Pokemon. And then some of those Pokemon evolved through trade, and then some of them you had to have an item so they were able to evolve through trade as well. And I remember I always had to do that when I was trying to like fill out the Pokedex for each of these different kinds of Pokemon. And it was just a lot of fun, you know, going through that and just playing the Pokemon game. It was just so much fun playing Pokemon Platinum, and I definitely need to get my hands on Pokemon Platinum again, because I just love that game so much. I can go back to it at any point. Like, I could easily play it online if I want to, but I honestly just want to buy Pokemon Platinum so I could have it in my possession and I can relive that era of Pokemon all over again, because it's just a very memorable experience and I just love it so much. But overall, like, those are my thoughts on Pokemon Platinum. Like, those are the many reasons why Pokemon Platinum is my favorite game. So I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts on this, like how you guys feel about Pokemon Platinum. Have you guys played it before? If you guys haven't played it before, I definitely encourage you guys to play Pokemon Platinum because it is such a great game. Like, if you're looking to jump into the Sinnoh region, you can get the best of both worlds, Pokemon Platinum, because pretty much everything you love about Diamond and Pearl is in that game, except it's much bigger. So I definitely recommend you guys to play it. So just let me know all your thoughts on that in the comment section down below. And if you guys enjoy this video, be sure to like and subscribe, really appreciate it. And if you guys want to follow me on social media, my Twitter, my TikTok, my Instagram, and my Facebook page is all located in the description below, so make sure to follow me on there. Make sure to click on that bell for notifications so you guys are notified whenever I upload a video on the channel. Other than that, I hope all of you guys are having a fantastic day, whatever the day may be, if it's the daytime, the nighttime, or the evening. And I'll see you guys in the next video. As always, peace out.